Welcome back to Our Future Priests, where we are joined today by one of our, I might say, illustrious Nigerian seminarians, John Okerulu. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Reverend.
So, our first two interviews that we've done most recently, seminarians have grown up traditional Catholics. Is that the case for you?
No, far from it, no.
Were you raised Novus Ordo and then became a traditional Catholic later on?
Yes, I was raised Novus Ordo, and I actually thought that Novus Ordo was the only Catholic religion there was. I didn't know anything about traditional Catholicism. No one told me anything when I was growing up. I was just a devout Novus Ordo because my parents were devout. But after I did total consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary, to Jesus Christ, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, after my high school, few months after, I started discerning a vocation to the priesthood, and it was in that period of time that a co-consecrant, because that's what they call those who are consecrated, consecrant. A co-consecrant told us about the traditional Latin Mass. He took us actually in 2013. So when I went there, it was a surprise to me and a shock. It didn't look like what I knew about the mass. It was completely different, and I the only consolation I had that this was Catholic because it seemed like a cultish kind of thing because it was away. The only thing that consoled me was that it was done in the Novus Ordo Seminary, so I was confident that it was done here. That means it's Catholic, and it triggered. I would say that was what triggered my interest because the Catholic Church was more than I thought it was. So I started reading, and especially as I was already discerning a vocation to the priesthood at the time, I started reading, and that's what led to my knowing about the traditional Catholic movement and eventually joining the seminary in Nigeria.
And which seminary was this you're talking about? Is this the Novus Ordo Seminary, or are you
No,
talking about Father Nakamaki Seminary?
yes, Father Kamike Seminary. I never went to the Noble Soul Seminary, luckily, because when I applied to them, I actually did go to a religious house. It wasn't the seminary. It was the Dominicans in Nigeria. I went there, but then I was already traditional. Okay, I was a pseudo trad at the time. I had not become a traditional Catholic in the full sense of the word as we know it today, as being a sedevacantist. They were very liberal in the way they said, even the Noble Sodomas, which was far from how I knew the Noble Sodomas in my parish, because my parish was very conservative. So I was really not happy with what I saw, and then I went to a college. I spent a year in a college studying philosophy, and it was in that college because I had the time to read. When I was at home, I did some chores and all of that, so I didn't have enough time to read as I would want. So when I was in the college, I had spare time to surf the internet to discover things about the traditional movement. I couldn't think of anything but that because I wanted to be a priest at the time, and I was wanting to know more about the traditional movement. So that's when, by the designs of Providence, I came across traditionalmass.org, a website. I don't know whether Father Chikada, I don't know who runs the website, but I came across articles on that website of Bishop Sanborn and Father Chikada, and they were very convincing, very logical. Everything was very clear and precise, which was very good. I had no doubt whatsoever at the time, and then I made up my mind that I want to be a traditional Catholic priest no matter what. And luckily, there was this young faithful of Father Nkamuke in Nigeria who is a proselyte. Right now, he's in Europe studying. He added me on Facebook because of the traditional posts I was putting then. Whatever I see that is traditional and edifying, I put it then on Facebook. So he added me as his friend and told me about Father Nkamuke. He told me some few months before I made the real decision to become a state vacantist, and then I told him. He told me that Father Nkamuke was coming down to the state where I was born and bred in Port Harcourt. That was Holy Week of 2016, I think. Holy Week of 2016. And so I went and met Father Nkamuke, spoke with him, and told him about my desire to be a priest. And then he said I can join the seminary in September of that year, or the fall of that year, as they would say.
So would you say it was an eventful series of events, or a dramatic, we might say, series of events that led to your becoming a true, full traditional Catholic?
Yes, yes. The sequence is being in the indult, FSSP, the SSPX, and then certificate. I followed that process. It wasn't just like knowing about traditional Catholicism, then becoming a state of accountant. I followed the sequence of FSSP, SSPX, and then state of accountant.
Yes, it's a series of steps that many people follow.
Yes, providentially.
But once you finally arrived at Father Nakamaki Seminary, did you start at the very beginning of the seminary training? You start with philosophy?
Yes, I did.
And what was life like in a true traditional Catholic seminary? Even if it's perhaps not as on the same scale that we have here in Brooksville, what was life like there?
Life was, I would say, it was a drastic change for me on many counts. One, I'm the last child of 6 children. I grew up in a home where I always had siblings, interacting with them and all of that. That was the way we were. But then coming to the seminary, joining the seminary, I was the only seminarian. There was no other seminarian at the time. I was just the only one he accepted that year. So it was like all silence and all of that. And I was the bell ringer too, which was a contrast with what I did at home. But my mother always was the one who woke me up in the morning. I never woke up by myself. And those days in which she didn't wake me up, or on which she didn't wake me up, I either woke up by 9 or 10 when I'm on holidays. So it was a hard fight for me. I recall vividly when I told him before I joined the seminar about that, my waking up late. He said, no problem, you would adjust. And he gave me the duty of ringing the bell only in the morning. That was the only time I could ring the bell. But several times I forgot to ring the bell. I remember one incident when I heard the bell being rung and I was saying, who's ringing the bell? I'm not ringing the bell. And I heard Benedicamus Domino. He was the one ringing the bell. The reverse was the case. He was actually waking me up. So I was ashamed of myself, but I tried, and now it's now like a second nature. Being a bell ring is now like a second nature. That was one interesting thing, and also he joined his seminary teaching with the missions, because as a matter of fact, the missions in Nigeria initially, when he was ordained, there were just 3 major missions: the Port Harcourt mission in the south, the Owerri mission in the south, and the Lagos mission in the west. But when I joined, there was it was like a boom. I would use that word, like a boom. Different calls from different people who were just discovering traditional mass and set of vacantism. So there was an increase in the number of missions he had. So that took him away from the seminary most of my first year. And so because of that cosmology, which I started with him, I was not able to finish the whole of that year. I had to complete it during the summer of 2017. So that was really an experience. So most times I found myself being alone, but I used those times very well, judiciously, especially in the study of Latin. I used those times to improve my Latin, because I was enjoying Latin at the time, because of its novel to improve, probably. So that was my experience in my first year. Then in my second year in Nigeria as a seminarian, I had all the seminarians with us. So it was more like we have it here, a little like we have it here, just a little less. I rang the bell more often, because I even rang the bells during the time when the electric bell would go here. I rang the bell then. And it was more organized then. I think we were 6 or 5 when in 2017 in Nigeria.
And so you spent a total of 2 years then with Father Nakamaki?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And after that, then you came here to the United States, joined us joined the ranks of the Brooksville seminarians. So, was it a difficult process? First, getting the necessary documentation to come to the U.S., and then after that, was it a difficult transition going from the seminary in Nigeria to the seminary here?
The process was my first, because I had never left Nigeria. I was always in Nigeria. My first time leaving Nigeria is to come to the United States. So that was the first time I ever went for an international visa or all those processes. I had never gone for it, but it was actually smooth. The question, I had a guide who asked Thomas and the other Nigerian seminarian and myself the possible question that if I forget what they call it, the consulate officer would ask us, but the questions he asked was far off. He asked me how many hours are they in the divine office, a question that was completely off. And luckily I had just looked that up, so I gave him the answer, and he left and came back and then said I should come at so and so time to get my passport for my passport having the visa printed on it. So it went very smoothly, as a matter of fact. And when I came here in 2018, everything was like we had it in Nigeria. There was no notable difference, really. it was smooth with regard to the classes, with regard to the program, everything. Because for Akamiki tried to make the seminary in Nigeria, the courses being offered here are exactly the same books, and the time differences too. The activities are exactly the same. So it was a smooth entry here. There was no hitch anywhere or glitch anywhere.
Well, that's good. That means that Father Nakamaki has a good operation there if he's able to send seminarians here who adjust immediately. But obviously there are differences between the seminary in Nigeria and the seminary here. Most notably, of course, we are able to do much more with regard to the sacred liturgy. And so how does your now year and a half in Brooksville compare with your 2 years in Nigeria with regard to the sacred liturgy?
With regard to if I recall correctly, we do prime, vespers, we chant prime, vespers and compline together. The same was done. He started doing that in 2007, my second year in Nigeria. So, with regard to the divine office, is the same. Well, of course, with regard to the mass, it cannot be the same because we have bishops and also different faculty members that are priests. So, he was able to do a missa cantata every Sunday in Nigeria, but that was just about what he could do. He couldn't do more than that. So that's what he did faithfully every Sunday. So I was exposed to serving in the different roles. I started serving actually as a Torifa, and then later on I started serving as an MC. But when they were more seminarians, they were serving and I was singing. I was in the school in Nigeria, which was just a few people in it, but I was in the school in Nigeria, one of those singing. So with regard to the mass here, it's really the whole liturgy is done here. I don't think anything more can be done. We do solemn high masses every Sunday, and sometimes when we have big feasts, we do pontifical solemn pontifical masses. So here is really an experience seeing all of these things, which I don't think in the later years and the years before that a seminarian would be exposed to them. Probably rarely. He may go through his whole seminary career without having such familiarity with the masses, especially the solemn pontifical masses.
Indeed, in this day and age, the ceremonies we do here, maybe a few other places in the world, are truly big ceremonies, very elaborate ceremonies. But aside from sacred liturgy, what other duties do you have as a seminarian? Well, you are still duties with regard to the sacred liturgy. We can cover those too. But now, personally, what are your duties as a seminarian?
When I came here, my first year here in Mosul Lutheran Seminary, I was assigned as a particular job duty, the duty of being the bell ringer or the rooster. It was just like a carryover. I was happy about it because I enjoy ringing the bell. It was different in that there are more rooms to knock at during the morning session. I ring the bell at various times during the day. I ring the handbell in the morning at 5:20 or 6:20 depending, and then ring the tower bells after meditation, and the tower bells still too during for the Angelus at 12 noon and 6 p.m. and then the tower bells for grand silence. So the only time I ring the handbell is in the morning. The tower bells it's a delight to ring those bells because I don't think I would ever see that in a long time because it's very uncommon to have tower bells even around the world today. It's not very common, so it really takes me back to the Middle Ages when I ring the bells. I just picture myself being in one of those monasteries ringing the bell. But the experience, the thing I like about is not necessarily the ringing the tower bells, but the morning bell. There was this handbell I was using before, which gradually started changing sound. I was wondering, am I not ringing it well? I was still using the same strength to ring it, but the sound kept changing. So I when it became very bad, I had to ask a fellow seminarian what was wrong. We discovered that the metal cracked somewhere, so we had to get a new one. You know how in a low mass there are different voices. The priest uses a high voice, a middle voice, and a low voice.
Yes.
When I ring, I always look forward to ringing the bell because of this. Because the voices are different. You have some who have a high voice because when I'm ringing, I say Benedicamus Domine and they respond Deo gratias. There are different voices I hear. Some have the high voice, some have the low voice. The high voice usually it's actually divided in two. The jubilant high voice and the solemn high voice. The solemn high voice reminds me of the psalm. I think that was what was sung today during Prime, Psalm 99. Servite Domino in Laetitia, serve the Lord and enjoy. Then the low voices remind me of the last things. So that always comes to mind time I ring the bell. So it's quite an experience hearing the variety, high, low, and then as you don't hear anything, you know that's low. Like I said, the priest is doing the consecration. So I really always look forward to that every morning.
Very good. We always look forward to it too. I'm sure everybody looks forward to it.
Yeah.
But also you have the some responsibilities as one of the assistant MCs, masters of ceremonies for the various, especially pontifical masses that we do here. Do you like doing that? Is it something you're happy to be able to do, or do you see it hopefully not just as a burden?
First of all, by I do the job de facto, but de jure I'm not the one assigned to being the MC. But anytime the schedule comes out, I see my name there as the assistant MC. Anytime there's a pontifical, solemn pontifical mass, I'm very delighted to do it because it's a great grace to not only be present at the mass but to assist at the mass. I think there's an indulgence for those who serve at the mass. So
Indeed, yes.
it's really draws you closer to the altar and makes you make sure that things are done orderly, properly, with decorum and with respect, because this is the greatest thing this side of heaven, as liturgists and theologians. So it's a delight to be an MC at the mass, and it exposes me to know those things in case I tomorrow, like, if I know what the subdeacon is doing, when I become a subdeacon, I'll know my function readily. The same thing if I know what the deacon is doing, if God wills I become a deacon, the same thing, and with the priest, knowing all of those things. So when the time comes, you won't learn, you have a force to learn all of those things all at once, because you already know them by experience, by reading the rubrics and all of that. And of course I have people who I ask. I maybe because I'm lazy, because I prefer rather to ask than to read. It's only when the person doesn't have the answer then I go through the pain. It's easier to ask. So the MC who has been here, Reverend Mr. Petrizzi, who has been the MC for a long time, I usually always go to him to ask him this and that. When I have a doubt, I just ask. So it makes it easier and faster for me to operate as an MC, assistant MC.
Very good. And also you also sing in the schola, as to say the seminary choir, when the seminary sings. Like today, for example, seminarians sang the mass. Is that something you like? Do you like singing generally?
Oh yes, I do. I really enjoy singing, especially Gregorian chant. Not singing, but Gregorian chant in particular. Really, there's this thing with Gregorian chant that you really cannot experience or in any other branch of music. I don't know how they call it because I'm not a musician myself. But Gregorian chant is very beautiful. The way it sounds, and whether male or female, is excellent. Whether it's rendered well or not, you see there's this beauty in it, which is worthy of our Lord, who needs the best. And that's probably why Pope St. Pius X made it compulsory that these chants should be used in churches. He was big on that. So it's really and of course, if one becomes if one becomes a priest, he would need to have to direct his scholar or whatever he has in his parish. So the experience I'm getting in the seminary would make it easier also for me, because when you're in the field, it's difficult to devote your time. But when you've learned these things already, you just be teaching. You won't be learning at that time anymore because you already did all the learning in the seminary. So it's very, very helpful. And of course, I like singing.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of learning to do in the seminary, which leads me to my next question, which is, obviously you've taken all your philosophy courses, and you've received tonsure and 2 minor orders.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes.
Porter
Correct.
and lector.
Yes.
So the same as the seminarians in our most recent interviews. So that you have finished your philosophy courses, you were tonsured when you started theology. Now, which do you prefer in terms of studies, theology or philosophy? Or more specifically, which are your favorite courses for this year, if you have any? And we have many courses, as I've said to the others. We have many courses. It's difficult to choose, but do you have any preferences?
Yes. All of them. I like all of them. I won't say equally, but I find joy in studying all the courses I'm having today and this trimester. But the courses I would say I like the most, or I like more than the others, probably the Gratia, the course on grace, and moral theology, because of its practical use. Those 2 courses, I think those are the ones I prefer better than the others. So
And do you find theology to be easier, more difficult than philosophy? Most people find theology to be easier in many ways. Have you noticed any difference at all? Is it all the
Well,
same in terms of difficulty?
theology, philosophy. First of all, some of it are abstract, but theology, most of what you come across is something you know either from the catechism or even from sermons, so you're more familiar with them. But the learning process to me is still the same. You have more stuff in theology. The act of memorizing is still the same.
The volume is greater.
The volume is greater, yes. So maybe you can remember it easier because you're more familiar with it, but the process is the same. You still go through the material, you memorize this, memorize that. So with regard to that, I think they're equal.
Yes, and some people find theology to be much easier precisely because of that, because it's already more familiar, and also because it's more rewarding in a sense, because when we study theology, we're applying our philosophy.
Yes,
Everything we learn in philosophy, we're applying now to
Yes.
divine revelation.
Yes.
It makes it more interesting. But what year do you expect to be ordained? I know you've done. You've studied in the summer before? In other words, outside of the regular course of the school year.
Yes, I have, correct.
And that obviously reduces the number of years that you spend in the seminary. Are you planning to do any more summers
Well,
of theology?
that doesn't depend on me. But if I am asked, if that is given to me, if I'm offered that, I would accept it. But that I don't. I'm not going to ask for it. But if I'm offered it, I would accept it.
So, which year do you expect to be ordained in that case? It can, obviously, keeping in mind that it can change based on what is available during the summer. But what year do you expect to be ordained to the priesthood?
With what we have on paper is in next 3 years. 3 years from now, that is the fourth year of my theology, because this is my first year, so the fourth year of my theology.
So 2023.
Yes.
Of course, as we said before, it could change, but that's the latest.
Yes.
And then, once you are ordained, do you expect to go back to Nigeria immediately and assist Father Nkamaki there, or do you expect to spend some time here working at St. Gertrude the Great, for example? Or what is the plan? Is there currently a plan? What do you expect?
Well, I would start by a statement that was made by him, Father Nkamaki, before I came to the US. There was someone who said, what if John goes to the US and doesn't want to come back? He said, I'll go and bring him back. As if he's ordained, I'll go and bring him back myself. So from that statement, I would have to go back to Nigeria to start to work with him. He has an apostolate, like I said, which is growing very fast, having about 10 missions in 8 states scattered around the southern part of Nigeria, and also even in the western part of Nigeria, and also having a seminary having himself as the only faculty member to run the seminary is really very tasking for him. So the seminary is there, but he doesn't give his all, because he's not a seminary professor only. He's also a missionary priest in parentheses also. So he needs help and assistance. So if God willing, I become a priest, I would go back to Nigeria to work under him and with him.
And how many missions does he have with which you would then be helping him? Do you have an exact number? Does the number change very often?
It depends, because I'm from one of his missions actually. When I joined him in 2016, I joined the Port Harcourt mission, St. Philomena Catholic mission. So that Port Harcourt mission, the next closest to it is the Owerri mission. So I see myself shuffling around Port Harcourt and Owerri. I don't know, maybe the other seminary will be in the other place, I don't know, but that's what seems most likely. It depends on what he decides, I don't know.
And do you expect to teach at all in his seminary?
Well, if he wants me to, I enjoy, not only I enjoy learning, and I also enjoy teaching. I enjoy doing both. So if he wants me to teach, fine, yes. But that possibility is also open too, because being the only priest, he cannot run the whole seminary by himself. He'll probably need some assistance. So I think I would also join him in that.
So if you were to teach in the seminary, which courses would you prefer to teach? Obviously, not having completely finished the seminary, you may not have even taken your own favorite courses, but at this point, the courses you have taken, which ones would you prefer to teach?
The two I mentioned as the ones I enjoy most now, the Gratia and moral theology. But moral theology is very broad, so probably as a new priest, it won't be nice for me to just jump into it immediately. So I probably will start with philosophy first. if he wants me to teach, I probably will start with philosophy first.
Yes. Well, very good. Do you have any other plans for when you are ordained? Is there any possibility of expanding, say, the operation in Nigeria once you are there?
The first no, the first operation would be to manage what he has because it's already very much. I don't see myself doing anything beyond that immediately. If it's too big a thing to want to increase it with the few number of priests. Because yes, of course, I know. And Nigeria too, the condition in Nigeria is not like you have in the US. There's, for instance, traveling from Port Harcourt to Owerri, it may be short, maybe 30 minutes on good road, but because of the roads are not good, so it takes you a longer time, and you on a galloping road always you probably getting sick. And I'm also not used to traveling. I I would say sedentary because I was always at home. I went to school, came back home, went to church, came back home. I never went out, so I'm always at home. So that traveling, I need to get used to it. So because of that, it will take it a long time before any kind of expansion on my part is done. Because traveling is a big deal already.
Yes, I hear the stories,
Mm-hmm.
and gather from that. Yes, it's a risky thing to travel. But do you have any other information for us? Anything else useful, interesting, edifying? As I've gone through my list of questions.
Well, I don't think I have any other thing to say.
In that case, do you have any useful advice for people who are trying to determine still what their vocation is?
For those who are discerning a vocation to the priesthood, first of all, the priesthood is a calling, a vocation which no one is worthy of. But who better than the Blessed Virgin Mary can make us less unworthy for so great a calling as the priesthood? So I would, for those who are discerning a vocation to the priesthood, I would suggest that they should have a true, a sincere, and a childlike devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. I compare devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary with that a child has towards his mother, because when a child is in need or in trouble, he runs to her, he runs to his mother, asking for succor, for help, confident that the mother would grant that which he requests. In like manner, should those who have Mary for their mother go to her in a simple, confident, childlike manner, and trust that she will grant them what they require, what they request. And also to the one who is discerning the vocation to the priesthood, he should have a spiritual director. He should go to a spiritual director for guidance, and every other thing will be taken care of. Surely, gradually, if God wills it to be.
So the main piece of advice is always devotion to the Blessed Virgin.
Yes, and in addition to that, actually, the best way to cultivate devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary is by the devout recitation of the Holy Rosary daily, especially now when masses are not readily available, so you may not be able to go to mass daily or even weekly. So the Rosary is the angelic psalter which you have readily to always say devoutly, laying your request to the Blessed Mother daily, confident that she will grant you what you request.
Yes, indeed. De Maria Numquam Satis,
Oh yes.
of Our Lady.
Yes.
There's never enough. So thank you very much, John, for sparing us the time to do this interview, and we will now continue on with our other illustrious Nigerian. So once again, thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much.